Hello again. So this is another subject that I'm super pumped to be talking about, and that is what is anger and shame. And they're really interesting emotions, mostly because they're really easy to see in extreme human behaviour. So anger and shame at that, that sort of the psychopath, sociopath level. And I don't think I've created any videos about this. Extreme human behaviour gives us the ability to see the impact and the really the differences between what less extreme, more normal behaviour looks like in comparison to these sorts of people. And one of the things that's really interesting about anger and shame is that they show up a lot inside of extreme human behaviour. And gives us a really cool insight. And so I looked at how we often deal with anger and shame, just at normal, normal in inverted commas levels. And it's surprising how many of us, have kicked a chair and blamed the chair. How we regularly talk about how we get angry at someone. And that was really quite interesting, because we never really talk about shame like that. We always talk about shame. It's an internal thing. It's a reflection backwards, and anger seems to be something that is a reflection outwards. And then I've watched people who realise that you can't be angry with anyone but yourself, and they really start to reflect on what that looks like. That they start to practice not projecting it outwards, but looking at, well, why am I angry? And inside those discussions and with those people, you start to see big similarities between anger and shame. That for whatever reason they are quite similar, and yet in practice, until you've realised that your own emotions are your own, there's this tendency to project anger outwards and shame inwards. But then when you get up to the higher levels, the more extreme human behaviour, both anger and shame are projected outwards. And that's really quite an interesting flip on its head, that you can see that there's still the similar pattern of behaviour, this projection outwards, that the individual's not responsible for those emotions, that something external must be producing them, or be the fault, I guess, is maybe the best word right now. And when you look at the events that occur that produce this projection outwards of anger and shame, or projection inwards of shame at lower levels of human behaviour, there's this common element, and I would call it an estimation error. Just got a sun cream in my eye. Out in the sunny, beautiful, along the lake at the moment. So, looking at it from an estimation error perspective, we get angry with the chair because we weren't expecting the chair to be there. We get angry with the person that's driving slow because we weren't expecting to be there, that there was this estimation that we would be able to drive fast to work. The shame projection outwards at those extreme levels, or the extreme human behaviour, it's not unusual for people to be violent, those physically violent, psychologically violent. There's this projection outwards of that anger, and then you've got it's like an estimation error of who we are. So shame. This is actually a bit confusing, isn't it? I'm explaining this a bit confusing. This often happens when I'm doing these videos, because there's two completely different paradigms. So I'm really challenging how it shows up for people, and how it would actually look from an artificial intelligence perspective. So how would we break it down into being a logical pattern of behaviour instead of it being an emotional pattern of behaviour? So if you look at shame, shame is an estimation error around how we present internally. So our view of what we should show up as, and then we have a situation where we don't show up that way, and there's that shame, that disappointment. It might be another word that we could look at. That disappointment in ourselves, in our ability. We're not showing up the way we want the world to see us. And anger is, that the world isn't showing up for us the way we want it to look. It's very interesting when you break it down that way, that in artificial intelligence we could create an anger and shame style response by creating a projection, short, medium, probably more likely a short term projection or an estimation of what how the intelligence should perform internally, and then how the world should show up externally. And we could actually replicate shame and anger without there being those actual projections. And whether that would help the artificial intelligence learn, or whether that's actually useful. And I'll consider that in further videos. I haven't got much further in that area around shame and anger and what those two emotions show up as, but it's pretty cool. I'm pretty excited to be able to get those two to a logical, something logical that an artificial intelligence could use, and see where those benefits, where the benefit is, and where the benefit isn't inside of building an intelligent artificial intelligence that we get along with as a human race. So yeah, stay tuned.